There was an Augustinian by the name of Father John Stone, S-T-O-N-E, lived in England the time of Henry VIII. We know nothing about John until he said no. We know nothing about him. He was an Augustinian priest, just like me, wore exactly what I'm wearing. Henry VIII, if you remember him, he wanted to divorce 6 wives. England was a completely Catholic country until Henry VIII. He wanted a divorce because he wanted his wife to give him sons. She kept giving him girls. Ha ha, Henry VIII, we know now through biology that it's the male that determines the sex of the child. Ha ha, Henry VIII. Well, the damage was done. Everyone said fine. He went all the way to the Pope. The Pope said no, you can't get a divorce. And he said fine. The whole church in England was Catholic. Now it's mostly not Catholic because the head of the church in England is the king today. That's what he did. So he went and sent his henchmen around to all the churches, monasteries, convents, friaries. They come to the friary, the Augustinians, which in England were known as the Austin Friars, and everyone signed the Act of Supremacy except one. Guess what his name was? Father John Stone. He was thrown into the Tower of London prison. He was beaten. He was drawn, quartered, eviscerated. He wouldn't give up. He said, I can't do it. I'm sure the other Augustinians said, John, just sign it. This is a nutcase. This will all pass. So I can't do it. And then finally he was boiled in hot oil. His head was chopped off and put on the Tower of London Gate. You know how I know all that? The Augustinians were given the bill for his execution. We still have it in our archives. And so John Stone, Father John Stone, was an ordinary guy that we know nothing about until he said no. Stop and think about that. What about you? Do you ever need to say no to some things? Do you ever need to say yes? Whenever I do confirmation retreats, I always talk to them about Father John Stone. Once on our Kairos retreat at St. Rita, each group is named after an Augustinian saint. So I remember the first time we named one group St. John Stone. That was the first and last time that group was named. We never used them again. Parents getting calls saying, why is my kid coming home saying he's a stoner? What does that mean? What does that mean? He said, how was the retreat? Great, I'm a stoner. Okay? So good old John Stone. Look him up. All you're going to know nothing about him until he said no. We all have to do that. How about Father Stanley Rother? Father Stanley Rother was a priest of the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, a farmer. Volunteers to go to Guatemala in the late 70s, early 80s. It was tough back then with the guerrillas, and the guerrillas were killing anyone who supported the poor, and who supported the poor? The church. Father Stanley was at home for a visit, and he was telling one of his cousins, he said, if I go back, I think I'm going to be killed. They are just, it is so bad. And he pleaded with him, don't go back. He says, I have to go back. They are my people. He goes back and is shot dead in his rectory, 1981. Stanley Rother, a diocesan priest from the Diocese of Oklahoma City. Someone just like us, who did what he felt he needed to do. So do you see, friends, these people, and I'm not even scratching the surface. Not even scratching the surface. I'm just giving you the ones that, I got 2 more I want to do. Okay, I just saw it. St. Rita, where I've worked for basically the last 30 years, I wear her wedding ring as a symbol to try to be faithful the way she was. Not her actual wedding ring, it's a replica. But I'm not going to tell you much about St. Rita, but I want you to learn about her. She was a wife, she was a mother, she was a widow, she lost her 2 sons after her husband was murdered, and she became an Augustinian nun and is known as a peacemaker. She entered the convent at 36, lived in the convent for 40 years. 15 years before she died, she received the stigmata on Good Friday of the crown, from the crown of thorns, a thorn in her forehead, known as the Saint of the Impossible. She died on May 22nd, 1457. In January, it was a day like today, and she's bedridden in the monastery. an Augustinian nun. And it's miraculous how she entered because they didn't want to take her. You know who brought her in? Her three favorite saints. I love how the saints turn to the saints. St. Augustine, St. John the Baptist, St. Nicholas the Tolentine miraculously brought her in, left her in the chapel. The nuns wake up. How'd you get here? She says, St. Augustine, St. John the Baptist, St. Nicholas the Tolentine brought me here. Cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. But in a medieval monastery, you know what a door on the lock is? Or a lock on the door is? A log. There was no way this little woman could get through. But she got through because the saints brought her in. And they didn't want her because her husband was murdered. There were two warring factions, like two mob families. The nuns, about half were from one family, half from the other. The Mother Superior was afraid the nuns were all going to kill each other. Rita then went and forgave her husband's murderer. Her two sons died when they wanted to do vengeance. She prayed, take them to heaven, Jesus. And they both went to heaven as teenagers. Unbelievable woman. January 1457. Her cousin comes, visits her. Can you go back to my home where I live with my husband and sons and bring me a red rose from our garden? It was a day like today. There are no red roses blooming. Guess what happened? She went back in the snow, one red rose blooming. That's why on her feast day, if you come to the shrine of St. Rita where I'm at, on May 22nd, you will all get a blessed St. Rita rose with the thorns. If you just grab a rose, you'll scream. But if you hold a rose carefully, you will look at its beauty and its fragrance. Isn't that life? If we just grab life, we'll scream. But if we hold life, life is great. And that rose shows that. So, learn about her. Look her up. Unbelievable.